Welcome back, guys, to a brand new episode of Let's Build Jurassic World. As you can see straight off the bat, we have returned to our Jurassic Park Visitor Center to turn it into that overgrown state we see in Jurassic World itself. Now, I know a lot of people have been asking me to return to my Jurassic World builds, so I thought this would be a return to form and do one last build on this map. And we're going to open here with exactly where we left off. And before I began working on the outside, I just wanted to make some quick changes to the inside. And the first big change that made a huge difference was just simply removing all the light sources. Then all we've got is Minecraft's nice dark, like natural light to make this whole place seem like it's been abandoned. Then at the end of the original Jurassic Park, obviously this is where the final scene takes place, and the huge T-Rex comes in and knocks down both of these skeletons. So despite the amount of time it took me to build both of these, it was now time for me to knock them down, but do it in a way that it looks like they've fallen down. So we're going to have all the rubble laid on the floor, and with some simple world edit tricks like that, you can see all I have to do on my end is drop them down with a few commands, and it brings the whole head to the ground. And then once it's on the ground, I just add a few little things here, you know, by just getting some wooden slabs and then just a couple of blocks here and there, just making it look as if this head has fallen from the height and crashed into the ground. Now obviously the head is kind of the simplest bit. The rib cage was like kind of a lot more complicated really. So what I had to start by doing was removing the legs, because while I wanted it to look like it crashed on the ground, if I put every single block you can see here onto the ground, it'd just be kind of a massive mess, as if you just kind of smashed a jigsaw puzzle on the floor. So I started getting rid of a lot of like the key extra features and just making sure I got the three main models. So we've got the top of the spine there, and we still have one of the feet placed on the rock, and then again by adding in a few extra blocks here and there, just made it look as if this whole thing had come crashing down. Now the final detail I had to add to this skeleton was the tail, because obviously this tail wrapped around the whole building. So then putting that on the floor again, I really feel like kind of captured the idea of this skeleton being knocked over by the dinosaur itself. And then obviously by just using the exact same technique, I managed to put the other skeleton on the ground as well. And I feel this just kind of is a nice starting point for us. This is kind of where the Jurassic Park film ended, and this is kind of where we should start the Jurassic World video from. Now, because we lost all the lighting earlier, it's become a lot darker in this room. Now, it'll still be a lot darker later on when we add in all the trees around, like overgrown trees around this building. But just to add an extra bit of light here and there, I decided to start knocking holes in the roof, because while this adds in a lot of Minecraft light, by looking at the Jurassic World film, this is actually what's happened over the amount of years that have passed since the original film. Holes in the roof have begun to form, and it just lets these nice natural beams of light shine into the building itself. Now that's kind of set the stage for the next episode. In the next episode we're going to go back into the visitor center and make all that look overgrown and destroyed. But for now we're going to concentrate on working on the outside. So a lot of people are always asking in the comments, what seed do I use for these builds? And I never give out the seed because, like I've said before, people will be hugely disappointed because a lot of terraforming goes into my work. And I feel showing how I terraform this was a key part of this episode, because obviously the overgrown jungle is such a centerpiece really to what this build is going to look like. So it was a matter of me showing you exactly how I did it. Now you can see that even though I've gone for this grass and leveled up the grass, because when we see this center in the film, it has been completely destroyed. Like the little fountains have gone, there's no sign of the path or even the track. So making sure this looked really overgrown and abandoned was obviously key. So combining vines and using a lot of grass was really kind of essential in capturing that same image. Now this is something I've never done before really. It's kind of like griefing your own work really. So I had to kind of make it look calculated. I didn't want it to look as if somebody had just come in, smashed up the whole building and placed a bunch of trees everywhere. I kind of really did put a lot of thought into it, and I still wanted to capture the idea that this is the visitor center. So you'll notice the gradient on the grass you can see beneath us is actually the same kind of level system we'd used in the fountains. So despite it now being grass and all these overgrown trees, there are still core elements there from the original garden that was here. And I feel like that's what kind of the film tried to capture, is the idea of those two gardens at the front of the doors had completely overgrown and been taken over by the jungle. Now what you can see here is just how ideal World Edit is for me as a builder, because obviously in vanilla Minecraft we'd be placing a load of saplings here and growing them really tall, but with some simple World Edit tricks you can see I can assign trees to the different kinds of axes. So the gold axe was the big jungle trees, and then this diamond axe is just the regular oak, because I feel there's a nice kind of contrast between the type of tree trunks with these trees and obviously the size that really kind of fill out a forest and make it feel overgrown, and that whole style we're looking for. And while you could see earlier we placed all this grass down, I still wanted you to be able to kind of see the visitor center from the track. So making sure I place the trees in kind of the right spot, you keep seeing I zoom out here to make sure you can still see the visitor center through these trees. And also the track was still important, even though you can't see it at all in the film. Because this is my kind of Minecraft interpretation, I feel like having the track there was kind of key, just so that if anybody ever did come and look at this world, they could follow the track around and they could still get to all the other places. So you could still find your way to the old T-Rex paddock, you could still find your way to the big grand Jurassic World entrance. Now as we move around here, I'm just adding in all the final details, and I'm normally quite sparse with my use of overgrown grass, but because of the whole idea that this is a tropical forest, I just used it everywhere. I made sure the whole place was completely covered up, and then obviously went back, you can see me there, just adding any little imperfections in and making sure the whole thing looked really kind of good. And as I zoomed out here, I was happy with the overall style. So then we move on to the lake, and now this is the final bit I did in this episode, because when we see again this visitor center in the film, the lake's completely gone. Over time, obviously the waters kind of must have sunk into the soil, who really knows, but the whole thing is overgrown, and all it is these big tall tropical trees. But for the purpose of my videos and me wanting to do a nice entrance and exit shots of each episode, I put a bit of thought into the way I place these trees as well, and I kind of wanted a bit of a valley. So as you can see, I'm building up the trees here kind of either side of a path. So that means when we're stood on the center of it here, you can look back at the visitor center and still have a nice long shot from the ground of the visitor center in the distance. And I'm not sure why these trees grew so short. You can see here they're a lot shorter than normal tropical trees. It might be something to do with the way I've placed them in World Edit, but even still, I feel like these actually kind of work nicely. So then when we're sat down here, the trees aren't too tall and we can still see nicely up to that big orange roof of the visitor center. Now, by using the exact same kind of tools and techniques as up there before, we start filling out this forest, and then obviously off camera here we start adding in all the vines, and then you can still see the two areas down there. So off camera I zoomed away and filled them myself, and that actually brings us to the end of this episode. So what we're going to do in the next one is we're going to come around here, and you can see we've still got the visitor center poking its way through all the tall jungle trees, and we're going to come straight in through the double doors here and finally add in all those little additions we saw in the film. So there's going to be on the inside of this visitor center, we're going to have like overgrown trees and the light shining in, and just really making this whole place feel exactly like it does in the movie. That will include one tiny little extra build, which will be that little Jeep garage we see the two boys build a new Jeep in from. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you very soon at the next one. Goodbye.